Over the first 2 weeks of the season, I think it's safe to say that the Green Bay Packers look like the most dominant team out there. They played two teams that made the playoffs last season, and they basically dominated both of those teams. And most recently, it was the Washington Commanders. And we're going to talk about this win by the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about some of what we kind of saw, because Micah Parsons looked really good out there. Devonte Wyatt took advantage of the one-on-one opportunities he had, obviously created by guys like Gary and Parsons. And even Devonte Wyatt, 2 sacks yesterday. We saw guys like Anthony Belton have some plays where he struggled, but generally speaking, he looked pretty damn good. The coaching staff of the Packers, you design cover 3 beaters against a coach like Dan Quinn, and these plays were working. So we're going to talk about some of what we saw in yesterday's game. I'm really excited to kind of get into it. We're going to start right away. We're going to talk about Micah Parsons. I saw some comments yesterday on social media after the game where people were saying Micah Parsons does not look that good. His impact's not really being felt. And I always choose to ignore these comments most of the time because I understand, if you're not watching tape, if your opinion of a player is based off of what happens with the broadcast angle, you shouldn't have an opinion of O-line or even D-line. Right, you can make an opinion of a wide receiver. If a guy has 12 catches, 200 yards, great game by that wide receiver. But if you're looking at a defensive lineman and you're saying, I don't feel the impact, like I'm not seeing enough from Micah Parsons, that opinion should be invalidated right away, but I saw a lot of people talking about this yesterday. So I want to talk about Micah Parsons first and foremost. The guy had an incredible game. If a quarterback throws the ball 40 times, and if you're able to impact a play 9 of those 40 times, which Micah Parsons did yesterday, that's an incredible game. A quarter of the time, you're basically impacting a play by one guy. That's what Parsons did yesterday, 9 total pressures. Of those 9 pressures, 3 were quarterback hits, 1 was a sack, and the rest were just like hurries where he got super close to the quarterback checks it down or whatever it is. Micah Parsons looked incredible, and it was just the movement and the quickness that I kind of saw. It reminded me of the healthy Parsons we had seen last season and even the season before that. It's a guy that's motivated, that wants to be, he wants to win the Super Bowl, essentially. The Packers right now, I would say, are probably the Super Bowl favorites. They look really good. Matt LaFleur has that offense going as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But, just kind of watching Micah Parsons, one of the things I noticed on tape while I was watching his tape was that when he lined up over that right tackle, I like Josh Connerly, loved him as a prospect, but as a rookie tackle, you have almost no chance blocking Micah Parsons. This guy was double teamed so much, and again, if you don't watch the tape, you probably don't recognize how often he was double teamed. Pretty much every single time Micah Parsons was out there and the Packers had a 4-man front, the slide was directly to Micah Parsons. They're chipping this guy. They're double teaming him with 2 offensive linemen. There are some plays where he was even triple teamed, which, I'm not surprised that Micah Parsons is getting that type of treatment. There are multiple plays where this guy was just absolutely impressive. Even when you try double teaming this guy with 2 offensive linemen, you would think that if you have 2 offensive linemen, you'd be able to shut him down. But there was this play here, which was really impressive, where Parsons just instantly beats the left guard, right out of his stance, just basically makes this guy miss. He locks in with the center, and within like 1 to 2 seconds, he's basically pressuring the quarterback, and the quarterback's getting the ball out. He's double teamed on that play right there. That is absolutely wild if you think about it. Double team, triple team, it really didn't matter. This guy had such an impact. And Parsons looks really good to me right now. And again, I think he's going to just continue to be the guy that we know he kind of is. He's a top 5 player at his position. But the one thing that people will overlook is how Micah Parsons being double teamed, chip block, triple teamed sometimes, how all of that opens up for other players, right? Rashawn Gary will still get chipped even if Micah Parsons double teamed. They'll still look to chip on Gary. But the interior guys, if Van Ness is out there maybe playing like the 4-eye or the long 3 technique, if Devonte Wyatt is playing the 1 technique, these guys are going to get one-on-one opportunities. And yesterday, Devonte Wyatt took advantage of this. Literally, anytime he was in a one-on-one situation, the guy was basically winning his block. 7 total pressures yesterday. He had 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. Devonte Wyatt was disruptive, and we do have to recognize, Micah Parsons runs, 4.3, 4 whatever it is. Wyatt's not that fast. Wyatt's probably like in the 4.6s or whatever he is, right? Wyatt's a lot slower than Micah Parsons. We understand that. So the production from Wyatt may not be as good as Micah Parsons because Parsons wins a lot quicker. But you need interior pressure. Defensive tackles are slower, right? It's just what it is. But if your defensive tackle is generating pressure from the inside, that makes it so much easier as a defensive line. Because when Parsons goes to the outside, a quarterback can just step right up. And the tackles can let those guys just kind of run upfield. But when Devonte Wyatt's coming from the inside, there's nowhere for the quarterback to go. And Devonte Wyatt looked incredible yesterday. I mean, talk about a guy that took a massive leap from last year to this year. All right, this guy's in his 4th season. I think he wants to kind of prove that he's like a top 10 defensive tackle. And honestly, coming out, he was my number 1 defensive tackle that came out in the year that he came out. I really, really liked his tape. I'm a Raider fan. Before I am, the football scout, I'm a Raider fan first and foremost. And I wanted Devonte Wyatt. I really, really wanted him. And the Raiders ended up trading our 1st round pick to the Packers that year for Devonte Adams. And the Packers used that pick. I think they technically took Quay Walker with the pick, but like they had 2 picks, so they took Walker and Wyatt. And Wyatt looks like an absolute superstar in my opinion. I think he's going to end up becoming a top 10 guy if he's not already that. He had a pretty damn good game in the first game of the season as well. But against the Commanders yesterday, he dominated. And the Commanders have revamped their offensive line, so don't overlook that offensive line on the inside. Wyatt also had a play in which he saved what I think would have been like a 20-yard gain from Jaden Daniels. Wyatt ended up kind of like jumping out there, and he ends up bringing the quarterback down for a sack. Really nice play by Wyatt. Really like what he's kind of flashed out there. The guy's pretty much unblockable right now. And I think that's just that Micah Parsons effect, so don't overlook the fact that Parsons is not only getting his own numbers, he's making it so much easier on the rest of the guys. Another guy on the defensive side, this will be the final guy we'll talk about on the defensive side, and then we'll talk about some of the offensive stuff. Keisean Nixon, man, holy crap. I don't think I've ever seen as good of a game from any corner than that game yesterday. When I watched the defensive tape, I almost felt like every time Keisean Nixon was being targeted, he was getting his hands on the football. So I logged into Pro Football Focus Ultimate, and I looked at the actual stats, and Keisean Nixon was targeted 5 times, and he had 5 pass breakups, which is wild. All 5 times this guy was targeted, he knocked the pass down. The guy was literally incredible yesterday for the Green Bay Packers. I would make the argument no one had a bigger impact than Keisean Nixon on the back end, right? The way Micah Parsons and even Devonte Wyatt impacted on the first level of that defense. Keisean Nixon on the 3rd level was incredible. And there are 2 plays that I want to just show you guys really quickly. There was a 3rd and 9. The Commanders had the ball at the 43-yard line. This was early on in the second quarter. And you're going to see Keisean Nixon get a pass breakup. Now, the score right now is 7-0, and the Commanders, they start driving downfield. They're literally on the Packers side of the field at this point. And they're looking to score a touchdown. They're looking to get that momentum. They're looking to potentially tie the game at this point. And they tested Keisean Nixon, and Nixon breaks the pass up. 3rd and 9, you get off the field. Phenomenal job. But truth be told, the second play that I'm going to show you guys here might even be better. And I think this play actually helps kind of win the game for the Packers. Obviously, there are multiple plays that kind of won the game. But this play was really nice because it was 4th and 4. The score at this point was 24-10. So it's literally a 2-possession game. And there's 7 minutes and 45 seconds left at this point. This is the moment where the Commanders have to go downfield and score a touchdown to make it a 1-possession game. And if the Commanders are able to score a touchdown at this point and make it a one-possession game, there'll probably be like 4 minutes left. You can get a stop and you can potentially go downfield and score another touchdown and tie the game, or even go for the 2 and win the game. All right, that's at least what the Commanders thought. Keisean Nixon had other ideas. 4th and 4, they run a slant to Keisean Nixon. He goes right over the top and breaks the pass up. That right there is a phenomenal rep. And again, 5 targets, all 5 times this guy breaks the pass up. That's incredible, right? And again, I'm a Raider fan. Keisean Nixon was literally with the Las Vegas Raiders before he came over to the Green Bay Packers. And he always flashed, just never really put it together. And with the Packers, the guy looks incredible. He really, really does look incredible. And I do think, I do think cornerback is like a system position where a good coach would just get the best out of certain corners. With Nixon, it's worked out for the Packers. They've really put this guy in a position to have success. And, Nixon's having success as like a press corner. And I think that's one of the things the Packers are kind of putting this guy in a position to do, right? If he's lined up 4 or 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, as the receivers bat a stem, he'll get his hands on that receiver. Just slows him down a little bit. So shout out to Keisean Nixon. I think he absolutely impacts this game for the Packers against the Commanders. Also, just keep in mind the Packers ended up getting a field goal after that pass breakup, and they go up 3 possessions. Game's over at that point. Let's go ahead and switch focus. I want to talk a little bit about some of what we saw on the offensive side. I want to talk about some of what we saw from Jordan Love, some of the offensive linemen as well. Jordan Love yesterday made 2 really, really nice plays that, at least from when I watched him, he made more than 2, but like, when I was watching the tape, these 2 plays just stood out to me. One was obviously the 39-yard touchdown pass to Reed. Phenomenal pass by Jordan Love. I don't even know like what it is that he kind of saw here where he's like, hey, I'm going to just put this in and like, right near the pylon, and Reed will go find the football. It was just a really nice throw by Jordan Love. Like, it does not get better than that right there. And it is unfortunate that it ends up coming back because Anthony Belton obviously ended up holding the right tackle. I don't think this was like a super obvious hold and like it was an intentional hold because he lost. The Packers right tackle, right guard, they're processing the defensive line game by the Commanders. And Belton's just a second slow in processing the game. The D lineman almost gets into Belton before Belton can get into the defensive lineman. And because the defensive lineman got into Belton first, his hands just did not land properly. Right? The hand ends up landing kind of around the neck, but it's not because Belton's like beat and then he has to hold the guy. He just wasn't ready to process the game. And this is what happens when you're a young football player and you're a little inexperienced. You're going to have moments where you're struggling. You're going to have moments where you got to learn and realize that this is no longer, NC State, right? This is the NFL. You got to be ready, and the speed has to speed up a little bit. And this was his first ever start. Again, it just sucks that it happens to be on the beautiful throw by Jordan Love. It's unfortunate that it just has to be on that play right there. Because if it was any other play, if it's a 3rd and 9, it's an incomplete pass, and it's a hold and they decline it, no one would have thought twice. But because he had this holding penalty on this play specifically, a lot of people, and again, I see all the comments on Twitter, a lot of people are saying that, hey, this guy sucked. This guy had a bad football game. And you guys will see in just a couple minutes, it's not the case. I'm going to show you guys a ton of this guy's snaps. The guy was actually really, really good. But I want to show you guys just a couple more things that I had noticed. Jordan Love had a 23-yard pass to Luke Musgrave as well. The design of this play was absolutely incredible. I mean, I think this could have been a touchdown as well if Love had just maybe like another 2 seconds inside the pocket. This could have been a touchdown. Regardless, it's still a 23-yard pickup. And the design of this play was really nice. And Love does a great job, kind of buying time and getting the pass to the tight end. I don't think people realize how great of a coach Matt LaFleur is. I think Packer fans, some probably recognize it, but I'm a Raider fan, so we've always kind of had coaches that aren't that good. We had Luke Getsy, for example, as our offensive coordinator last year, and I think Packer fans know Luke Getsy. The guy was a terrible offensive coach, right? Play caller. He was a terrible play caller. He might be good as like a wide receivers coach, but as a play caller, the guy was bad. And the Raiders had him last year. And then when I watch Matt LaFleur and compare him to a guy like Getsy, you just see the difference in their offensive structure, how they attack coordinators. Now, Dan Quinn runs a heavy cover 3 defense. Matt LaFleur has basically taken advantage of Dan Quinn now twice, right? Once when he was with the Packers or with the Cowboys in that playoff game, I think 2 years ago. And then now most recently in this game where you just design cover 3 beaters, and this 57-yard pass to Tucker Kraft. I mean, it doesn't get better than this, how you can design a play. You can force a specific guy into coverage that is aging. He's not the player he was 8 years ago. And you can just kind of take advantage of it, and bam, you get 57 yards on any given play. And this is what Matt LaFleur is great at. Right, we know Dan Quinn loves to run cover 3. He's always kind of been known as the cover 3 guy, right? They'll run cover 3 shell, and sometimes, he'll mix coverages and get out of that cover 3, right before the ball gets snapped. But generally speaking, they're going to run a lot of cover 3. So what the Packers did is they knew that, hey, at some point they're going to come out in this cover 3. Think about this play right here. So you're going to get Williams, who's going to go into motion, and he's going to run down the right sideline, and he's going to take the field side cornerback with him. Right, because he's essentially just running a seam route. But his route is really just an influence route. He's almost not ever going to be targeted on this play. The entire point of him running this route is to take that corner. At the same time, Josh Jacobs releases right away into the flats. This is important because there's multiple plays, if you guys watch the tape, where he doesn't release right away. He's going to end up chipping on one of the defensive ends, either the right guy or the left guy. And he'll help those offensive tackles. And then he'll release after he chips. But notice on this play specifically, Josh Jacobs runs right away into the flats. And with that, you're also going to see the front side linebacker on that same side quickly runs out there with Josh Jacobs. He wants to make sure this isn't some sort of screen play. This isn't some sort of quick moment where they get him the ball and the linebacker then is kind of out of position. So you have a wide receiver running down, taking the corner with them. You have Josh Jacobs releasing super quickly out here towards the right, and that's going to take that front side linebacker. And then you're going to get this switch release concept by these tight ends. Think about what happens here. When that inside tight end goes towards the right, when as soon as he makes that move, that defensive end in front of him has to make sure that he's not being reached on a run play. So that defensive end's going to follow that tight end to that same side. And again, that's going to slow down the pass rush because you understand it's a deep developing concept. You need the time. You don't want that defensive end to have a free release and get to the quarterback potentially. And then you have Luke Musgrave who's running a deep over route. Now, on a cover 3, one of the rules is that either the post safety or the backside, either linebacker or safety, in this instance, safety, one of those two guys has to carry the deep over route. And in this instance, both guys kind of carry it. And with that, you also end up just kind of getting Bobby Wagner, who's not that good of a linebacker anymore, in a situation where he has to cover Tucker Kraft. And he has to run with Kraft. And the switch release kind of, it adds a little bit of junk and traffic right there. And Bobby Wagner has to kind of go through that. If the guy's not good in coverage, you're basically ISOing him out with all these different things that are happening within this play. So Matt LaFleur is designing a play where they think, hey, we can take advantage of Bobby Wagner. We can take advantage of some of the rules that this team has. And it works. And you pick up 57 yards on this play. All right, this play right here opens up. This play flips the momentum. I shouldn't say flip because I think the Packers kind of had the momentum anyways, but it just gives them that momentum, right? It just fires up that defensive line a little bit more. So really nicely designed concept by the Packers. Matt LaFleur, I think, is one of the best play callers in the NFL. And again, I think a lot of people recognize that, but I think there's still some people that might not agree with that. Matt LaFleur is like, you think about Sean McVay as a play caller. You think about Ben Johnson as a play caller. Matt LaFleur's right there. He's an elite play caller. And I think he's one of the main reasons why the Packers offense is as good as it is. And don't overlook, the first 2 games that the Packers played are playoff teams. The Detroit Lions could still be a really good team. We don't know, right? They could start putting up 30 points starting next week. Their defense could, still find a lot of success as they go forward. I think the Packers did a really good job yesterday, but I want to wrap it up talking a little bit about some of the offensive line. Talking about some of the offensive linemen, Anthony Belton did have the holding penalty, and he also didn't play every single snap. Most of the offensive linemen played 70 snaps. Belton only played 53. He swapped in with Kennard. I think at some point he ended up coming in. It wasn't right after the hold. It wasn't even right after that. Even the next drive, Belton was still technically on the field. So I'm not sure if there was some sort of injury or if they just wanted to have some sort of rotation. But Belton did not play 100% of snaps, but he still did play a lot of snaps. Right, 53 snaps is still a lot of snaps to play, especially given he's a rookie in his very first ever NFL game. I liked a lot of what I saw from Belton. The guy was pretty damn solid in pass pro. He had a lot of plays where, they didn't chip, they didn't help him, they didn't influence the defensive end. He just had a straight up one-on-one block against that edge player, and he did a phenomenal job. One of the things I noticed with Belton is he loves the latch technique. If you guys watch Belton long enough, you guys will see him do this. Basically, he's going to latch on with the arm onto the shoulder pad. Right? He latches on, he holds the shoulder pad right here, he grabs it tightly, and then he just kind of mirrors wherever that guy's going to go, and he just kind of holds onto this guy and latches. And it's perfectly legal. It's a move that a lot of offensive tackles do. I shouldn't say a lot, right? There's not a lot of guys that do it, I guess. There's probably like 20 guys in the NFL that do it. But Belton does it, right? And he's a rookie, his very first game. I saw him do it probably like 4 times. When he did have one-on-one opportunities, the guy did a pretty damn good job. There were multiple plays where he anchored down, right? He just straight up stopped power, right? Guy tries bull rushing, he just shuts it down. Just anchors down on this guy. Multiple good run reps as well. Belton, to me, has a ton of upside. If Belton ends up being the Packers' long-term starter at right tackle, I think he could do it. I really do think that. I think his upside and potential is through the roof. And I don't say this lightly. I love Belton coming out. I loved other guys coming out, right? Tevin Jenkins, loved him coming out. He never worked out as an offensive tackle. So although I love the guy coming out, I'm also honest with guys, right? Like Jenkins is not that good, or Tevin Jenkins is not great, right? He's a good offensive lineman, not great. I think Belton has huge upside to be really, really, really good. And I don't say that lightly either. Just the way he anchors, the way he handles power, the way he latches and mirrors guys, some of the technique he plays with, the hand usage, a lot of it's really good. Now, he does have moments where he struggles, and that's going to happen, I think, when you're a rookie offensive tackle. So he has to just kind of develop and get better in certain situations, maybe just process a little bit better, and then the footwork has to just get a little bit cleaner. But the guy has power, and I don't want to overlook the power he plays with. Like, he'll pancake people, and it just looks effortlessly. Like, he'll just kind of like bump a guy, and bam, he's pancaked the guy, right? Someone hits him and runs into him, and that guy's falling down. Belton has elite power, man, and I don't want to overlook that. And I think if he can just kind of fine-tune some of the technique elements of it, I think he'll be a really good offensive tackle in the NFL. I don't know if he'll continue to start because obviously Zach Tom was out. So when Tom comes back, Belton probably won't play at that point. Jordan Morgan looked pretty good yesterday as well, but he did have some struggling snaps. Now, before we move forward, I want to just take the next 60 seconds to talk to you guys about today's sponsor, ProfitX. This is America's #1 sports prediction market. ProfitX is peer-to-peer, so you'll be playing against real users as opposed to traditional sports books where you'll be playing against the house. This means that ProfitX is going to give you much better odds. If you guys want to make picks on the NFL, ProfitX has you covered. But if you're like me and you want to make picks on multiple other sports, ProfitX has you taken care of there as well. From the Ryder Cup to the Premier League, ProfitX has pretty much every major sport. And one of my favorite parts about this platform is that if the odds don't already exist that you want on any given player, you can basically just request it. ProfitX will make it happen. And if you use my link to go sign up right now, ProfitX is going to give you $200 in free money. For every dollar that you put into ProfitX, they will essentially match it. So make sure you guys go check out the link down in the comments below. Let's get right back into the content. Jordan Morgan looked pretty good yesterday as well, but he did have some struggling snaps. Now, I don't know if that's because of the fact that the Commanders have a really good interior defensive line. Daron Payne, you got Javon Kinlaw, you have Jazon Newton. Those are good defensive tackles. Morgan had multiple losing snaps yesterday, 9 specifically losing snaps. I'd say 3 or 4 of those were like pressures. He gave up some quarterback hits, but that's okay as well. Morgan's still technically a young football player as well. And, we saw Morgan play left tackle in preseason, and he looked dominant out there. At left guard, he doesn't look as good, and I want to talk about this a little bit because I think this is important to understand, and I think Morgan kind of fits this category a little bit. If you put Anthony Belton at guard, I think he'd be a better guard than he is at tackle, right? Because he's super strong. That just naturally makes sense at guard. And even then, if you look at the guys that guards are going up against, right, D tackles are usually on the stronger side. If you look at a guy like Morgan, he's kind of the opposite of Belton. Morgan's not super strong, but he has insane movement, right? Really, really, really good movement. So if you put Morgan at left tackle and you say, hey, go play out in space, right? Go block Dante Fowler, go block Micah Parsons. These guys are they're 260-pound guys. They're fast, they're quick. Morgan just has to match the speed, and those guys don't have elite power. They don't have super, super crazy strength. He's going to have success against those guys, and we saw it in the preseason. When he was playing left tackle, he was dominant out there. Like literally, Morgan's tape was some of the best tape I had seen from an offense tackle in preseason. I get it's preseason. Not every single one of those guys are starters, but he looked really good. And putting him at left guard, now he's going up against, Jazon Newton. He's going up against Kinlaw, Daron Payne. These guys are stronger. They're more physical. He's not as strong, so he's going to struggle a little bit more. So, I understand right now Jordan Morgan, he might not be the long-term starting left guard, right? This could just be reps to give him reps. I think that kind of makes sense at this point. But if they get him back over there at offense tackle, I think he'd have so much success. But even then, you can't overlook, he's still a really good run blocker. Same with Rasheed Walker. I think Walker almost changed the game from his run blocking. Walker had some losing snaps in pass pro, but like as a run blocker, he had some elite blocks, man. Take this play right here as an example. This is going to be a 10-yard run. Josh Jacobs cuts this right off of Rasheed Walker. He hasn't gotten the long 3 technique that he has to get in front of. And just look at how effortlessly he gets in front of this guy. That movement that Walker has right there, the ability to reach and get in front of a guy, that's impressive as hell. I don't think people recognize, like, there's tackles that don't get to this block, but Walker is legit an elite run blocker. He had multiple plays where he just kind of did his job. He reached, he made, even if it was a difficult block, he would make it. I love what Rasheed Walker has kind of flashed. And even Jordan Morgan has kind of shown upside and potential, and he's looked good at times as well. Anthony Belton, I think, is a solid offensive tackle. If he's able to get it, just be a little bit more consistent, I think he'll end up being really good as well. And even a guy like Jenkins, he's an all-pro caliber interior offensive lineman. Ryan had some moments as a run blocker. The Packers have arguably a top 7 offensive line. Like, that's a really good unit. And even with Belton and Morgan out, like, that's still arguably a top 7 offensive line. The run scheme's elite, right? Matt LaFleur runs one of the best run games in the NFL. The Packers are going to have a lot of success this season, man. I'm excited to continue to cover them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if you guys enjoyed this format more than the general format where, like, I only talk about offensive linemen and we'll only watch offensive linemen. Or if you guys rather have me cover, the D tackle, some of these big pass plays, and, talk about individualized offensive linemen, and, maybe we'll talk about Josh Jacobs next time or whatever it is, right? Let me know if you guys enjoyed this format more or if you guys prefer the other format. Let me know down in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.